We run a small-scale permaculture nursery out of our backyard. And so here we are in the fall where it gets below freezing most nights and then thaws out by day. We've got a lot of plant material that is healed in to rich soil and sawdust to hold the roots in a good way. But periodically we need to interact with a bunch of water to wash roots. This time of year, ice-cold rainwater is a little bit of a tough sell. So we collect rainwater. I've talked about this before. We'll turn these offline relatively soon once we go soundly below freezing, but we use that rainwater for all of our nursery work. And you can imagine on mornings where you need to go through and break up the ice in order to get started for the day, that can be both rough on hands and rough on plant roots. It'd be nice to have warm water, but I don't want to be using electricity and fossil fuels. So here's this very simple concept. It needs a lot more layers of optimization to be really legit and functional, and I'd love to get some feedback from people. But basically it's a simple metal compost ring that has a bunch of very, very active compost going with a scavenged tub we found that has a float valve to that rainwater tank, and so the water can flow into here and sit in a fully ensconced warm bed. You can see here the temperature has dropped actually quite a bit. It was up around 111 Fahrenheit or 45 centigrade. It's now hanging out a little shy of 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 centigrade. And that is down in the soil area or the active composting area. The water itself, I don't have a temperature measurement for it, but it's not too bad. It's comfortable. I can have my hands in there for a while. It's definitely not ice that needs to be broken up. I know there's a lot of ways that this is not optimized. For example, this random plastic tub with a lid definitely doesn't convey the heat as well as it could. A random lid without lots of insulation, so I should have boards over this or some way to cap it. I hear all that in a lot of people's minds as you look at this, but this is a place to begin. This is about a 20-minute project. At the end of this video, I'll share how this was assembled. I would love to get better feedback, and I think we'll do another one that's larger, has a metal container with a lid that has a lot of insulation on top, and maybe the whole thing has insulation as well. But for now, as we need to take apart these bare root plants and wash and inspect and hydrate their roots before they're shipped to folks, we can still use rainwater and compost tea. So these buckets all become compost tea because of all the compost on the root systems getting flushed off. So it hydrates and nourishes the roots, and we can offer them probably about 60 to 70 degree Fahrenheit rainwater by having the thermophilic action of compost around the container radiate in a profoundly inefficient way as a rough sketch, but something that's better than nothing and certainly not going to be icy until we finish shipping. A very, very loose implementation of what I think is a sound concept. I'd love your ideas around optimizing. Do the little minor upgrades that I suggest make sense to you? Do you think there's some much better way to go about this? It would need to be free. It would need to be something that takes about a half hour in total and only uses materials that are waste already. Finally get a stick tossed for our friend here. Go get it. And we will get back to work assembling these packs of beautiful plants that need to find homes. Thank you all for your orders if you've put them in. This is everything getting prepared to zip out the door. If you've missed some of our sales, thank you for your patience. March 1st and September 1st are when we offer our biggest sales of the year. So you feel free to mark that on your calendar or think about becoming a member if you want to know early. But for now, time to ship and have slightly warmer water. Thank you 1 trillion tiny living beings all pooping and peeing and having kids and eating stuff around a vat of water in an old dumpstered plastic thing. Thanks. We've got a pretty complex work area here. You can see our water tank in the background there, and when it's warm enough it works fine. We can just dip in with buckets and refill them and use them for a bit. This is the tank there with the float valve. But once it starts getting colder, that's very susceptible to freezing for sure. So I identified an area off to the side. It's actually a little bit further out of our way, which is nice. We can tuck it under some trees. George is helping me assess the site and move some compost and scraps. This is a lot of the leftover material from preparing our plants for shipping, and then the muck that we add on is nutrient rich, and that helps kickstart the composting process. Working with 2x4 welded wire ring that's 4 feet tall and cut at 1 foot in a few spots so it can be folded down. So this is a 3 foot tall ring that's reinforced at the top. I really like this design it's self-standing and sturdy, and it's a little bit smoother on the top, which is nice. So we start by putting some compost in there, loading in some food scraps, some leftover leaves, and then all of this really nutrient-rich muck from washing the roots of plants. A lot of moisture, a lot of fertility, all of that helps facilitate decomposition and generate warmth. We're also using waste hay, which is from the bedding of our chicken coop. So this is hay that's been mixed with manure. That goes a little bit out to the edges, which creates a nice sponge and insulation. And then we infill with shredded leaves and bits of plant material to get it all going. Here there's a wheelbarrow load of mixed manures and leaf bags. So we've got high nitrogen and high carbon to mix into this and get our ratios right. I'm test fitting a bread tray here as our platform for the water tank. That'll be what this sits on when it's full enough, and that'll give a nice stable platform for the tank to be in. Juan here is removing the float valve, which is really straightforward. It's just a hose clamp, and we can slip that off and then re-plumb this, so to speak. Simple for sure, but works fine. Now all the parts are together and we're ready to get it going. The compost bin's almost full, lots of leaves, lots of hay, lots of good carbon, and then the tank is sitting proud in there but buried in a little bit. With the lid on, it allows for the rest of the compost to be banked up along the sides. Put the hose in first and start flowing it in, since the float valve is very slow in refilling. And you can see here the lid is on. We banked everything around it and then put some soil on top. You could even use this for starting seeds in the spring with radiant heat underneath. And we have a little bit of leftover hay and bedding from the chicken coop. We can bank that against the outside for additional warmth and insulation. And this is it all together, ready to go. On day 1 through 3, it did not heat much at all, but by day 4 and 5, it started to accumulate heat and get quite a bit warmer than ambient air. Very simple system, very, very inefficient in a lot of ways. I recognize that, but it was a great prototype for the basics that we have here. Now the float valve is in place, and some binder clips help stabilize it from moving, and that will be good enough to keep it auto refilled and provide warm enough water for our purposes. This little compost temp probe is a really nice, easy way to kind of get a sense of what the temperatures are. It started out a little bit below 60 degrees Fahrenheit and reached 110 or 45 degrees centigrade pretty quickly, a couple days. More insulation, more optimization, all sorts of upgrades to be done, but this is good enough as a place to start. Thanks.